Okay. So yeah. So like I said, my husband, if he didn't have to ask me to go back to work, he wouldn't have. He he's been really conflicted through that this whole sorry to like just dive right into part three. He like wouldn't have asked me to go back to work if I absolutely didn't have to. He's been very supportive of this spiritual journey that I've been on, which I was on before I met him. Made very clear about like a lot of the things that I was doing and changes I was making, and it just kept getting more and more radical and rebellious the more support I had, which is why people, say like, oh, well, rich kids, they have the support system and so they can do it. But I also really like to argue that I was doing this when I had no support. I was on this path before I met my husband, and I was making these radical changes, and I was being isolated a lot more from my family. It was a slower process when I was doing it by myself. And when I made a really big leap in my journey. I called out my mother for her alcoholism, and I was really just kind of distancing myself and focusing a lot on certain healing boundaries that I didn't have before. And then once I made those decisions, I was manifesting. I was really working hard on I really wanted to find my partner, my life partner, not just a romantic relationship. I wanted my life partner. And once I started making pretty drastic, brave decisions for myself, I was like, well, I guess I'll just do this by myself, and it's just gonna be really hard. It's gonna be like it was in college when I had to work 5 jobs and do this and do that and blah blah blah. And I was like, but I'm gonna do it. And then once I made those decisions, then I met my husband and I got the support that I needed, which is exactly what happened in college. I was working all these jobs and I was busting my ass, and I got the support that I needed. I had an internship at a law firm, and then one of the OTs that I met, she fell in love with me. And I probably say her name. Anyway, she's a singer too. I love her. She's a Leo. I can say that. But she hired me on as her personal assistant and paid me enough money to where I could focus on one job in school, and it was perfect. So when you brave those harsh realities, I firmly believe it's Saturn, because I'm a Saturn girly, but the universe will reward you for that. And so I made those decisions. I met my husband. Well, I had to keep braving it, and then it also tested to see how strong he was, that's a whole spiritual thing that arguably was maybe not fair to him. But him and I were committed in this path together, as both left-hand path Luciferians, whatever title you want to give us. We both really struggle with our spiritual identity because of all the things that we study. And then to add more to the study is it's making sure your inner circle is people that you can discuss things with. I genuinely like it. I am an intellectual study. So I don't really like having conversations where I can't be talking about these deep dive things. And that doesn't mean I can't small talk things. I like getting to know people, and that's because I firmly believe these small details of getting to know people dives into sociology, psychology, and all the above, and it is intellectually stimulating for me. So I had to change my friend group with people that I could actually have these conversations with. So then studying is also built into socializing. And the whole point of all of this is expressing how to build relationship to the things that you need and for life, survival, and then the things that you need for yourself. So I need to be intellectually stimulated, and so I need friends who will listen and want to listen to me talk about these things, and maybe have similar interests or different interests in an intellectual way that I'm not feeling drained or because I've lived many years where I felt like I was wasting my life with people, places, things, everything. Why am I dressing this way? Why am I listening to this? Why do I like these things? Well, this is just what everyone says to like, and it's this is what you're supposed to do. This is humanity. And no, I really had to just rebel against it. And that includes all of these things. And that includes, when it came to bills, it doesn't mean, I'm not necessarily suggesting that people stop paying their bills and go into debt and have collectors and all this stuff happen. You do not be in the same position that I'm in necessarily. I firmly believe it'll all work out for me, but I've had to risk this. This is a gamble that I've had to take. And I've won some and I've lost some, and I think it's all part of the plan and the journey and whatever. but I had to commit and make sacrifices to my study. And that is not easy, especially when you have family and kids and there's a lot of responsibilities. It's easier for me as a woman who does not have human children. And also as a woman who has a husband who, despite some of his disgruntledness or whatever, despite some of his own judgments or feelings about it, he does love me and he does support me and he does believe in what I'm doing. And so he equally sacrifices these things. Like, we're living in a small 1-bedroom apartment. We lost our house. Like, these are things that I wouldn't have been surprised if he left me over. In fact, I told him, this is not necessarily healthy, but I told him multiple times. I was like, if you're too weak to be on this path with me, then get the fuck out. And that's not accurate necessarily. It's not that he was weak. I was just really triggered. But it was just like, hey, dude, I told you what I was doing. I'm so dedicated to my path. Like, I don't think people understand exactly how committed I am and how much I've been willing to suffer. Because here's the thing. When it came to me, like, well, I had to go back to work. Okay, well, yeah, because in that moment, the suffering was going back to OT, which is kind of like a retrograde cycle. That's a whole other thing. But I knew spiritually, well, I can't destroy my relationship with my husband, even though I don't think I could. But that doesn't mean I'm going to try, even though it seems like I did. I tested him for sure, but it was like, okay, well, now I'm at this crossroad, and the crossroad is, do you continue this rebellion, and not go back to OT, and like, what are you willing to sacrifice? Well, my husband's not my family. I have a lot of 4th house energy, so my inner family is not something I'm willing to sacrifice. So when it came to that, not really ultimatum, but like, okay, we're both stuck in the mud. How do we help each other get out of the mud? And that's like a whole other thing. And there's a lot of people who have told me, well, you could have done it smarter. You both could. It's like, no. Yes, we could have. There were things that we could have done in hindsight that would have been smarter. I firmly believe we had to go through everything the way that we went through it because of the wisdom that we received and all of the other dominoes. Like, it was set up that way for a reason. And if we would have done those smarter things, I don't know where it would have gone, but I don't believe I would have the gnosis that I have on a systemic level into the structures of our society. I got a deep inside look of exactly how the system here in America treats people in these situations. And so therefore I get to talk about it. And so depending on what your goals are for yourself and your life and all of the above, like, I know my purpose and what I'm meant to do. And so that's why these decisions were easier for me to commit to. If you aren't meant to be who I am and like do what I do, this path may not be the best choice for you. You really have to figure yourself out on what it is you're trying to manifest in your life. But for these big dreams, these big goals, these big purposes that I know I have within me, I had to go on the front line and witness all of these monstrosities that occur in poverty and all of the above, because that's a big dismantlement of this age of Aquarius, from Capricorn to Aquarius, and like all of these other things that we're doing. But that's Pluto reference, by the way. All right, I got a minute left, and I just want to gather my thoughts because I might do a part 4. I don't know. I think I will. So I'm gonna do a part 4 and wrap this up. But conclusion: more intentional suffering, and I use my birth chart to help me kind of figure this out, and that's going to be a little bit more about what I talk about in the next video. So awesome, thanks for listening.